today's session, the last of this series of symposiums. It's gonna be hosted by Barbara Hinger, who is she's a professor of foreign languages at the Department of Romance Languages at the University of Graz, Austria. Her research focuses on the multilingual perspective of the formation of modern languages teachers and the acquisition of languages in an institutional context. And as you can see on your screens, and her talk is going to focus on the challenges in English academic writing. So, Barbara, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Carmen. And thank you very much for inviting me and having you with you. As Carmen said, I am not a specialist in English language or in English language teaching. My personal background, or firstly my geographic background, I just wanted to show you where Austria is located in Europe, but I'm sure everybody of you is familiar with it, but sometimes it occurs that Austria is just too small a country to be known for. And in Austria, I am located at Graz University, so in the southeast part of Austria. And I had the pleasure to spend a couple of months with Carmen, who stayed here with us in an Erasmus project. And she really has done a great work for us. Thanks again, Carmen. Yeah, it's a great pleasure to stay in touch as well. My background, as Carmen has already said, I studied Spanish and history here at Graz University. I was a Spanish teacher, Spanish as a foreign language. I also taught history classes in a secondary school here in Austria. I stayed a couple of years in Spain, in the southern part, especially at Seville University, where I was the lecturer of German as a foreign language. And I do have some experiences of a couple of months staying abroad in Australia and the United States. So English for me is a lingua franca. I am an English lingua franca speaker. I have not studied English, but I, of course, as you all, I guess, have to use it in my publications. My personal experience with academic writing, not in English, firstly, but in Spanish, so to say, was when I went to Barcelona shortly after my studies here in Austria, where I did a master in women's studies at the University of Barcelona, and all the classes were held in Spanish and some also in Catalan. And of course, we had to write loads and loads of seminar papers. And even though I had already finished my studies here in Spanish, I always got really nervous when it came to writing up my seminar papers in Spanish. I was convinced that my Spanish is not good enough on an academic level to be handed in to the professors there. And I was very relieved when one of the professors let us know that she also accepts papers in German. And so I did. I did write this one seminar paper in my mother tongue, and it was a huge release. So writing papers, publications in another language than one's L1 is quite challenging, as all of you experience or might have experienced, I would say. So when I tried to prepare for this talk, I also wanted to get familiar or to get to know a bit more about academic writing. So what it is, you can see here, I would say, straightforward definition, and maybe a bit of a well, maybe a bit over the top. Academic writing affects all areas of modern life. Well, if we do work in academia, yes, but if we don't work at university or in other places of academia, it does not really affect all areas of modern life. But still, when you do university studies, you have to write your coursework or essays, abstracts, etc., etc. And you have to develop your skills in academic writing, because as the quote says, it's a foundation of successful existence in the academic environment, of course. And the next quote I would like to present here traces academic writing in English back to the time after World War II and the internationalization, and today we would say the globalization of academia, where English, as you know, is just used as a lingua franca in so many different areas, and of course also in academia around the world. Well, what is academic writing? You are all familiar with these definitions, I would say. You have to use a formal style of writing in universities, of course, and scholarly publications like journal articles, books on academic topics, essays, research papers, and of course, your PhD thesis, your dissertation. And academic writing, as you also know, follows the same writing processes as other types of texts. So you have to be familiar with the content, you have to know specific conventions, and you have to be familiar with the structure of a paper, with a linguistic style, I would say. And of course, as I already have mentioned, it is quite a challenge to write in English if you are not an L1 speaker. And here you can see what academic writing is not, but you also know about it. It's not personal, it's not long-winded. And maybe this is a challenge, especially for Spanish or French or Italian speakers, I would argue. And it's not emotive. It's a rather formal. You have to be very clear, very precise in using technical terms. You have to focus on what you want to express and to get a well-structured paper done. And you also need to show your sources, of course. You have to be consistent. And yes, it's not a fiction what you are going to write. And different fields of studies have different priorities in terms of writing. And you should get familiar with these writing styles, I would say, already when you are studying undergraduate courses, but of course, when you do graduate university level courses. And academic writing, I would argue, is challenging in the L1 and even more challenging in the L2, because you have to take into account what scholars call the so-called interlanguage or the L2 development. And the language structures in the L2 develop over time, so it's not a quick development, and we also have to consider vocabulary and especially cohesive text elements. Why is academic writing challenging in VL1 as well? Well, we don't really use what you have just seen in our day-to-day life. We don't be really formal, clear, precise, focused, well-structured and consistent when having conversations with our peers or with friends, etc., and maybe not even with our supervisors. So academic writing is just a different style of language, a different writing, formal written style of language. And this is why it's also challenging in VL1. And this is why maybe if you study abroad in an English speaking country, you will almost always find special courses for academic writing. Not that many for academic writing in English as an L2, but surely academic writing for L1 speakers of English, because the English speaking world is very conscious about the fact that people have to develop their academic writing skills and that it takes time even in VL1, even if English is VL1. On the other side, nowadays, we can find quite some critics in academic writing, and the title would be English only in academic writing. English is used, as you all know, more than 90% of all academic articles. So it's just the global language in academia. And nowadays, academic writing in English is defined as written academic English as a lingua franca. but we do not have enough investigations yet. So you see here, it's still an emergent status when it comes to investigate writing academic English as a lingua franca. And here you can see some numbers from publications in Ulrich's Web, ranked by the largest numbers according to the different languages used in scientific publications. And you can see that French comes first. It's followed by Spanish and by Russian, German, etc. But of course, English is not here in the table, but it is, as you have seen before, used in 90%, sorry, of all publications in academia. And here you can see another quote, a quite personal one from a Turkish scholar. And maybe you would like to read through the quote. It's Esther speaking, a Turkish scholar of foreign languages. She works in the United States and she has been interviewed. And she said in the interview that she initially used English tactically. Before I became a full professor, I made sure I published in English. So it's a quite pragmatic approach, I would say. But now she is already a full professor and she feels freer to write in Turkish. And why does she do so? Because the Turkish academia field, I would argue, is familiar, of course, with English, but not all of them. It's also, as you know, a generational question, I would argue. And this is also true in Europe, in Austria, as well as in Germany, and in France, of course. So when we have a look at the general writing process, we can at least differentiate for different stages. As you can see here, we firstly have to collect ideas, we have to do a brainstorming, we have to plan what we want to get down on the paper, then we have to start the writing as such, and thereafter we have to proofread and revise our paper. When it comes to academic writing, we can at least differentiate 5 different steps, as you can see here. The pre-writing phase, so you are looking for a topic, you define the topic, you have to read a lot, etc., etc. When it comes to planning and outlining the structure of the paper, what you really want to get across when you write a paper or a dissertation, PhD thesis, then writing a first sorry, that would mean writing a first draft, not the first step, redrafting it, revising the first draft, editing it, and of course, proofreading it as well. So this is very general, but we all have to go through those 5 steps. And it doesn't matter whether English is an L1 for us or it is our L2. And this is just a visualization of a writing process. And here I have highlighted, it's in German, I'm sorry for that, I couldn't find any translation. And here I have highlighted the points where you can see that the general writing process is different in an L1, in an L2 compared to an L1. So the red circles always indicate that we have to be quite careful because of the interlanguage development, because of the L2 development of a student or of us as an academic, I would argue. Using English for research publications poses quite some challenges for speakers with other L1 languages than English, as it requires a complex, formal, lexically dense, distant, and impersonal register, which takes some time to be acquired or to be developed, as Cummings already in 2000 pointed out. And he differentiates what you can see here, the so-called PICS variety of a language from the CULP variety of a language. PICS means basic interpersonal communicative skills, and CULP cognitive academic language proficiency. And here I just have pointed out the same 2 areas of in L2 development defined by Cummings back in 2000. the basic interpersonal communicative skills are those which we need in our everyday life. So when you study abroad or when you stay 2, 3, or 4 months or even a year or longer in an English speaking country, so to say, then of course you would develop rather quickly the linguistic skills you need in everyday life. But when it comes to cognitive academic language proficiency, you will need much longer because it's formal academic learning. And here you can see what Cummings found out. It takes more or less 2 years to develop the linguistic skills needed in everyday life. Of course, it can last shorter. Sometimes it lasts also a little longer. It depends on your motivation, on your context, on your personal background, etc., etc. But when it comes to CALP, the cognitive academic language proficiency, it takes much longer. So it can take up to 7 years to develop really highly linguistic skills needed in formal academic learning. And I don't know whether you can relate to this differentiation. Maybe one or two of you can let me know that this is also your experience. You can use the public chat.
You can also use your microphone so if you feel willing to it.
Yeah, of course. If not, it's fine as well. I guess it's a bit of the experience of all of us that, of course, we oh, maybe somebody has answered. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is important, of course, for academic writing, but on the other hand, it's also important for migrant populations. Then they come to a country with little children and they go to school, and we wonder why they can't get the writing done as quickly as the oral language skills they develop. Okay. Academic language proficiency refers at least to two different areas in language, and you can also relate, of course, to those: vocabulary on the one hand and language structures on the other hand. So when it comes to vocabulary, you definitely need technical terms, you need abstract nouns, you need explicit lexis, and you need to know how to paraphrase things so that you don't continuously repeat what you have already said. But and when it comes to language structures, you need parts of clauses, complex clauses, tense, aspect, and mode in the verbal paradigm. You need cohesive elements. You need text markers, and you have to link, especially when it comes to academic writing in English, and to interconnect with different paragraphs. So this is quite a challenge, I would say. And the other point I want to make is that you usually, or nowadays, we do also link writing to reading. Then reading scholarly publications, and as all students and all people working in academia, we have to read a lot. And this can be a point a starting point, so to say, or a continuous development point to take into account. When reading scholarly publications, you could highlight, if you don't already do, useful language functions. Take notes, I would say, summarize your notes from different readings and see the language used there. Make lists of useful vocabulary and take also into account complex language structures, and start to reflect your L2 learning strategies. Maybe you would like to use a multilingual table. Maybe you would like to use a mind map with useful phrases and clauses for academic paper. Or maybe you would walk your language proficiency. So while taking a walk, you can just listen to scientific presentations, to scientific talks. And nowadays, with the internet, we do have a really great amount of access to listening to scientific talks. And I would argue the receptive skills, reading firstly, and of course also listening secondly, do help to develop writing skills also in academic writing. We may pay a little less attention to those receptive skills, but we do have quite some nice results when it comes to maybe extensive reading in a new language, so to say, and this might also apply to reading academic papers. So when it comes to read extensively, usually your productive knowledge in a language also develops. And you might do all those things already. Yeah, you could let me know thereafter. This is a quote from Sydney University, which reinforces what I just wanted to say. Building your technical vocabulary specific to your discipline takes time. Yeah, and you should be conscious of it. You can improve your vocabulary by looking up technical words you come across in your readings or in class and noting down what they mean and how they are used. I would say this is really useful, and I continuously do it. I still do it when I have to write a paper, etc., in different areas of my studies. You should also look out for frequently occurring academic words, of course. For example, well, this might not apply to your specific field, but still analysis, aspect, factor, discourse, etc. It's just a simple example, I would say. And this is an example I would like to I would like to let you know. It's a mind map. It does not refer to academic writing. I'm sorry. I couldn't find a mind map referring to academic writing, but the principles behind are the same. So this is a specific topic. It was in a multilingual foreign language class. All the students had to use French, English, and Spanish. And the topic area was weather. And then their task was to create a multilingual table with vocabulary or a multilingual mind map. And the student created a multilingual mind map. And we asked them to use different colors for the different languages, and also maybe to draw some, if possible. Yeah, some are very good in drawing or in visualizing abstract meanings, abstract words, and that could help your memory. And then it could become much easier to write your academic papers. But it depends if you're a visual type when it comes to learning a language, or if you are a more auditive type. So if you react to listening, then you really should walk not your talk in this case, but your academic paper. What I would also like to show you is a tool which was created by Cambridge University, and you might be familiar with it. It's called English Profile. And you have here the website, and they also have a YouTube video to introduce the tool. And the English Profile was how could I explain it? It focuses on the common European framework of references. So it gives you insights into vocabulary and grammar structures of English. And it shows you when you use a different, a specific word or a specific language structure, so a grammar structure, you can look up there whether this structure refers to, say, A2 level of a common European framework, B2 level, or C1 or C2 level. And it might be the same word, but the concordance of the word, so the use of the word in a sentence might differ according to the different levels. And here, of course, you can check your own vocabulary and your own grammar structures. And this might give you a feedback where you could develop better. So where you could gain more insights into your interlanguage academic development, I would say. So English profile, I would suggest, is really a useful tool. This is just a quick checklist also for useful tools for academic writing when it comes to paraphrasing or grammar checking or summarizing. And of course, you know that there are so many tools based on the internet by now that you should also use them just when you have finished your paper or parts of your paper. You go to those tools and you copy your paper and you can get nice results, I would say. And of course, nobody of us knows where ChatGPT will lead us. Maybe we will not have to write any papers anymore in 10 or 20 years time. So definitely not for me, but for you, it might work nicely. We don't know, but we have to hold, of course, a very critical perspective as well. So, and I can send Carmen if you would like the different internet websites so that you can scroll through them on your own. And my last point would be that what I have already said, when it comes to writing a paper, of course, you have to manage your literature. And this means that you have to read extensively and be aware during the reading process already of technical terms, of phrasal structures, of cohesive elements of the written English language in academia, so to say. The first part here, I'm sure you are completely familiar with, and the second maybe as well, the research management tools. I highly recommend them because you can also find not only concordances, but also frequencies of words which are used in different academic papers. And as I have already mentioned, writing is highly linked to reading. Reading of academic publications will develop your academic English. You can't close your eyes or or close your ears. So it's just up to you to read, and then you will notice that your writing will develop as well. And as I already have mentioned in the literature, this is called extensive reading. And maybe a table before finishing. This is a survey who was conducted in Sweden, and upper secondary school students and university school students were asked about their reading habits and whether reading in Swedish or reading in English is faster. So you can see here what they answered. The blue bars refer to the university students and the gray ones to the upper secondary school students. And you can see that usually Swedish, so the L1 used by the students, gets higher scores. But as I said, I would say, if you get used to read a lot in English, then you will also be very quick, or getting quicker and quicker, so to say. And further supports, what I have come across with, and you might know about it, I don't know, is this website, the Academic Writers Space. It's not for free, I'm sorry to say, but what might be of interest for you, they do offer academic retreat schedule, retreats on academic writers space. So you can buy, so to say, a 2-hour writing retreat. You can buy a whole week of a academic writing retreat, and you will be guided through your academic paper. You just have to find out whether it's too expensive for you or whether it's okay to spend some money on a 2-hour writing retreat. I wanted to highlight this because my experiences with so-called personal or individual writing retreats is quite positive. From time to time, we get together a small group of people, say 3 are enough, 2 are enough as well. If the group is bigger, that's fine as well. And we really rent some rooms in a little hotel in a nice environment where it is not too hot in summer. I know it's different in the southern part of Spain when in the Austrian mountains, but still we suffer from heat by now. And it's great to spend 2 days or a week together with the same purpose to get an academic paper done. Maybe not the whole paper, but you can focus on the first part, on the middle part, on the last part, and you fix your writing hours. Say you start at 9 in the morning after breakfast, and you have 3 times of 3 hours, sorry, of writing. Then you pause and you continue, etc., and you come together for lunch, and again in the afternoon you come together for dinner, and you exchange what you have been doing and whether you really can reach your objectives. Maybe you do it here at Graz University once in a term. They offer so-called morning writing sessions. So we all get up at 6 and we are ready at 6:30, and we share 2 hours of writing on different academic papers. They guide us through this writing process, and they always initiate it with a little piece of music, and after 20 minutes they stop and they make us do some physical exercises only for 2 minutes, and we continue our writing for 30 minutes, etc. So that could also be a possibility, and it's online, I have to say, so we use the internet for that. Yeah, and this would be my last point, an outsider's view from the New Yorker, a magazine I really appreciate from the United States. And should you wish so, I can send the article to Carmen. Thank you very much for your attention. And I hope that I met at least some of your expectations. If not, I apologize. I would like to see your reactions, your comments. If you have any questions, please feel free. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. That was really good, really, really good, truly. So yeah, now as Barbara said, if anyone have any questions, you can use your microphones and you can use a chat, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Also, I will share the links she's mentioned through email later, so everyone can have them.
Or maybe I can ask a question. What is the writing group about? So do you come together at the University of Granada? Do you have online meetings? Oh, I see there is a question, Elena.
Yeah.
Oh, hi everyone. Sorry, I cannot put the camera at this moment, but thank you so very much for this talk. I think it's the first time that I come to the academic writing SAAS group. So thank you so much for organizing this. And I was just wondering, because I think that what I find the most difficult of academic writing is to proofread after writing the paper. I mean, as a non-native speaker of English, I don't really know what is wrong completely. I mean, of course, I know that there are some mistakes and I know some very common issues, but what can we do apart from using, I mean, I use Grammarly sometimes, all of this, but when can we wait? For instance, with the passive voice, Grammarly has an issue. It's just like you put the passive voice away. So sometimes, when can we decide what to use? And well, thank you. Sorry for this blurring right now.
That's okay. Frankly, I would ask a native speaker because there are tricky structures in English academic language use, and we might not be able to differentiate them correctly. So I always would check with a native speaker if you have one at hand. I'm not sure whether this is the answer to your question or whether it satisfies you, but I definitely go to a native speaker and ask him or her.
Okay, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
if I can add something quick, I'm not an expert. I'm still writing my PhD. But what I find throughout my undergraduate and my master's and now PhD that helps a lot is writing something and then leave it for like a week. If you
Oh,
have time,
yes.
of course, leave it for a week to like just stay in your computer and do something else and then come back to it. And your brain has defamiliarized with what you have written before. So those structures may jump off the screen at you and you can do changes that otherwise, since you are familiar with what you're reading, otherwise they might seem unnoticeable before.
Thank you so much, Carmen.
Yeah, thank you, Carmen. I completely agree. You should really, and even if it's only 2 days, leave it as if you haven't written it, and then take a fresh look.
There was someone else, and Anicie, yeah, you want to?
Good afternoon.
yours.
Thank you very much for having me at this meeting. It's my first time when I join, and it's been very helpful. And I do have a question. Maybe you can guide me on that. I'm on my second degree at the moment, and I write in literature, English literature. And I was wondering, because I find it very difficult on quotations when, for example, I find a book and then I go to a different book, but then I don't find the second book that the previous author cited. And what would be better to quote, to be in all fairness, to quote the first, the initial author as being quoted by the second one, or paraphrase, or because sometimes they quote them, sometimes they paraphrase, or just put both sources. So this is something I really struggle with, mainly because obviously not all the time I have access to books in English, or some of them are quite expensive, or I don't have memberships to all the online libraries. So with regards to my question, I don't know if I made it clear, and I apologize if I didn't. But what's the fairest thing to do when somebody else is quoting somebody else, and then you can't find the primary source? Thank you so much.
Well, you could say in the literature part, and you could say in brackets, see in or quoted by. This is what I do in German. I'm not sure. Look, I'm really not sure whether that's okay in English. Does somebody else know it? But I guess it's the best would be to be very transparent and just, yeah, say see in or quoted by.
Yeah, it is the same in English. You just put on quotation. I'll write it on the chat. In quotated in, and you add the source where you found your quotation.
Yeah. So I primarily quote the initial source, although I haven't had access to the book. That was my my difficulty, because quoting when I use a reference book, most of the times I I tend to read it. So sometimes I don't have access to those books. So
yeah, if it's a literal quote from if it's a literal quote from like author A that author B uses, you can use quotated in. And if it's a paraphrase of another author, you can, to make sure you just can specify this author as he addresses this other author's theory about something, explains that. Just make it as clear as possible.
yes, I find it quite tricky, because obviously we want to make sure that everybody gets the merit for their work, but sometimes it's not very easy to get to the primary source. Thank you so much for your answer, and for having me here.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any more, not answer, just comments, or can add any other like tips about academic writing in English? Feel free. I have two, they're really silly questions for Barbara, but as she was talking, I thought of them. And the first one would be, which one is the most, what have you find most difficult about academic English in your whole career, even though if it's just something tiny, but what you find the most difficult?
The most difficult is maybe for me really the sentence structure and the paragraph structure. You know, I once wrote a paper in English, and maybe that was in my mid-career, so to say. And I was quite fine and happy with the paper. And of course, I asked a native speaker to proofread it. And that was okay as well. And thereafter, a friend of him, and who was also a friend of mine, told me, you know, it was so great for this specific person to go through your paper, because he noticed your German L1 in the structure. And I thought, oh my God, this is exactly what I don't want to know. So I guess it's really hard to get rid of those L1 structures in a way, on a sentence level and also on a paragraph level. Maybe not that much on the text level, but in the short bits and pieces. And maybe this is also refers to using the passive in the right way, etc.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the most difficult part, to get rid of your native language structure, whatever is Spanish or some other like German, like yourself. That's the most difficult part.
And
Yeah.
I guess it is easier to get rid of it if you stay for a longer time in an in our context, in an English speaking country, or if you read a lot in English. That definitely helps.
Yeah. Juanjo has sent a question. I'll read it out loud for everyone and for you, Barbara. He says, do you think that in academic writing, when it comes to writing, let's say a 20-page article, a really huge chunk of the article is devoted to what previous scholars have said on the given topic, and that in turn that leaves little space to develop the ideas you want to deal with in the article? And he adds, I read some articles and I often wonder, okay, the history is great, but what about your ideas? You're telling me very little, and this analysis is not in depth.
Yeah, I can relate to this. Thank you. I guess it's academic practice till now that you firstly have to show that you know the context really well. And only thereafter you put forward your study or your investigation, etc. And then your own ideas fall short. I know a very highly regarded scholar in a field you might not be familiar with, in neurolinguistics. She works in Germany, but is internationally very well established, etc., and regarded as well. And of course, she also, during all her academic life, had to publish in this short format. And a couple of years ago, she published a book, and with the most important ideas of her investigations and her studies. She still put forward study results, etc., etc. But of course, the book gave her much more space to be very clear of her focus. So this might not be possible for each and every one of us. But you might find different formats in maybe not in English speaking, in English journals, because usually, as far as I know, they really stick very strictly to the structure of a to the usual structure, so to say, of an academic paper. And it also happens to me that I think, okay, now I don't have any space to develop really my idea. I only can present the study and the outcomes. And when I have a little space to discuss, it's tricky. It's, yeah. So I don't have a clear answer, I'm sorry. I only can agree with what you said.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends on the field of research.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, definitely. And what you put in the chat, yes, part 2. There are some articles or some papers who are divided into part 1 and part 2, and some of the journals, which I know or which I am familiar with, they do acknowledge that this specific study or paper is so important that there have to be 2 parts. That's a possibility. Thank you. But it's quite rare, so to say. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyone else have any more comments?
Hi, I may have another question. Maybe this is for you, Barbara, for Carmen, or for whoever wants to join in. How much time do you use or do you let pass between the part where you're planning your writing and the part where you actually write the paper? I mean, with how much time do you write the article so that you arrive to the deadline with enough space so that you can do all the processes of proofreading and editing and all of this?
Honestly, it depends a bit on the area I'm working on and on the type of paper I want to publish in. But I usually try to leave 1 week before the deadline, before the actual deadline. At least 1 week, I would say. But please, experiences from other people would be.
Yeah, I can. Recently, last year at the end of last year, I got accepted to publish a book chapter, and I started reading around I would say end of November, beginning of December, and the deadline was April, the end of April, this 2023, and I started properly writing just after Christmas, around the 10th of January. So that's January, 3.5 months, because I left some space for some time for proofreading and stuff. So, but sometimes it's very difficult to set dates and a timetable for writing.
Yeah, and inspiration when it comes. better
Exactly.
write
You
your
can
book
know.
working. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing, both of you, your experience.
Yeah. But yeah, there are people comments in the chat. I'll read them out loud in case anyone wants to. Yeah. Anicia said, I would like to share my experience where after living in the UK for almost 9 years, I was struggling to read in my L1 as opposed to English. Yeah, I guess everyone more or less have experienced the same. Yeah, Laura Alvarez replies, absolutely becomes a strange, difficult to read, write and speak about the things you are working on your L1. Yeah.
Yep, because
Actually,
the technical terms are so different from language to language. Yeah. Sorry, come and go on.
No, I was just gonna say a colleague from University of Granada, he just became a doctor like 3 months ago, and his thesis was doing researching specifically that how your L1 gets affected by your L2.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting topic. Yeah, and Juanjo says he has heard at least takes 6 months to write a good publishable article, which yeah. And Sarah says, this is just a tip for those who are looking for books that would help you develop your writing skills, especially help you write in a clear way. On Writing Well by William Singer. I don't know if I pronounced that well. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to write it down, actually.
Thank you.
Writing Well. And yeah, and if no one else has any comments or questions, we can bring the session to a close. I think it's been really useful, at least for me. I hope for everyone else as well. Laura, yeah, please.
Hi. Yeah, this is sort of a question and a comment related to what you mentioned about how certain specific terms are very different, or sometimes I was wondering if there are terms, because I was thinking about this recently, because I was reading about the diriges Ich in German, and I was trying to think whether this actually translates to English in the same way, if you could call it lyrical I, and is it the same thing, and also to Spanish. And I was wondering if there are that terms that are really untranslatable because they developed within the research of that specific language, and then students use it, like literally translate them, but it's actually not the same, like this kind of terms.
Yeah, and sometimes it's better to just leave the term in the language of its origin, really, and to put it into italics and try to explain it. Yeah, it depends on the field and on the area, of course, but sometimes it's the only solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, if no one else has any other comments or questions, we're almost there with the time. So I just want to thank Barbara a lot for being here today. I know the end of the term and the academic year is really hard for everyone. So thank you, Barbara, and thank you everyone else for being here today. And I hope you enjoyed the session and find it very, very useful.
Thank you, Carmen, and
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, and good luck with your papers and PhD thesis.